Mrs. Lao, there is a student named Lian in Jiangdefu, Henan Province. He studied hard since he was a child, but lost his father very early, and his family is very poor. One day, Liaozhai was out, and he got lost on his way home in the evening. Where is Mr. Lian? Isn't the night too late? He asked one elderly woman as he walked into a village. When Lin was panicking and frightened, he asked for a place to stay before he could ask the old lady who she was. The old lady led him into a toll house. A woman in her late 40s, with a big mannerism, picks a lantern and guides a woman out. The old lady went up and said, "Mr. Lian has arrived." Lian Xinglian, who was busy getting to see her, said happily, "The son is beautiful." Not only to be a rich man, a banquet was arranged, and the woman sat on one side and persuaded her to drink frequently. Although she raised a glass, she did not drink, nor did she eat chopstick. Incredible, inquisitive, she inquired about her family. The woman laughed and said, "My late husband's surname is Liu, who lives in Jiangxi province, and died suddenly because of an accident. I'm a widow, living alone in the middle of nowhere, and my family's increasingly in decline. Although there are 2 grandchildren, they're either as stubborn as a owl or as clumsy and incompetent as a purgatory owl. Although he doesn't have the same surname as us, he is also a close relative of a generation, and you're so loyal, so I took the liberty of meeting you. I have a little bit of money in my possession, and I would like you to take it to the local business and get a share of the profits. It's also much better than reading poverty and dying like a hotshot." I'm afraid Liaozhai has failed her by saying that she is young and a nerd. If you are going to study hard, first of all you have to solve your life problems, Mrs. Liu said. "He's smart. Where are you going?" So the maid took out the silver and delivered it in person for 800 taels. The honest man is terrified, and he says so again. Mrs. Liu said, "I also know you're not used to doing business, but try to do it and I don't think it's going to go well." Worried that he could not do it alone with so much money, Lian decided to find a partner to do business with. Mrs. Liu said, "It's not necessary. It's enough just to find a modest, discreet, business-savvy servant to run errands for the boys." So she reaches out her long finger to sort out the gossip and says, "Find a gilly named Witty. I told the servants to prepare horses, put up the silver and send Liaozhai away, saying, at the end of December, I will clean the cup plate and wait for the father to wash the dust. The horse is well conditioned, you can ride it, give it to the boy, don't bring it back," he said. Liaozhai came home for more days, and the maid bolted the horse and went home. The next day, Liaozhai searched for a friend, and, sure enough, found a man named Wu, and hired him for a high price. Mr. Wu, who had been out for years, was a straight man and took things seriously, so Liaozhai entrusted him with all his money. The 2 men trekked around Jingxiang before returning at the end of the year, making triple the profits, if you count. Liaozhai was given a reward for his help from a buddy surnamed Wu, in addition to his salary, and they negotiated to add the reward to other accounts so that the owners would not know. They had just returned home, and Mrs. Liu had already sent someone to greet them, so they went to Mrs. Liu's house with the person who had come to pick them up. Just see that a big feast has been arranged. Mrs. Liu came out to comfort him again and again. After Liaozhai paid the money, he handed over the account books, and Mrs. Liu left them aside. "We'll all be here in a minute. There's music and singing and dancing." The guy who gave his last name Wu was given a table at the outside house and told him to get drunk before he went back. Because Liaozhai had no family, he stayed at Mrs. Liu's home to guard the ears. The next day, Liaozhai asked to check the accounts and take stock of the property. And Liu said with a laugh, "No need for this later, I already calculated it." So I took out an account book to show Mr. Lian, which was well documented, including the reward he gave to his servants. "Madam is a goddess," Mr. Lian said in shock. Lin lived for a few days, and Mrs. Liu took such good care of his room and board that she treated him as kindly as her nephew. One day, Mrs. Liu set up a wine table on the hall, with one table facing east, one table facing south, and the next table facing west. "Tomorrow, when the fortune comes, It's best to travel, Mrs. Liu told Mr. Lian. Today's banquet for your servants will make your journey more glamorous. After a while, I called Wu's buddy to sit down. At one point, the gong clanged and the female entertainer presented a playlist, and Mr. Lian sang a rendition of Tao Chu Fu. This is a good sign, Mrs. Liu said with a laugh. You'll get a wife as good as Sissy. After the banquet, he handed over all his assets to Liaozhai, saying, This time, you can't go out and get time restrictions. And don't return without tens of thousands of huge profits. My son and I are blessed with fortune and destiny, trusted with the people in your heart. And you don't have to calculate your profits and losses in the distance, and I will know. Lin Sheng promised to say goodbye. The two of them went to the Tuhuai River to be salesmen. After a year, it made multiple times more money. But Liaozhai loves to read books and does business without forgetting them. All of his friends are readers. The profits have been so great that Mr. Lian can't think about it. Gradually, I handed over all my business responsibilities to my buddy, Wu. A student named Zhu in Taoyuan County had the best relationship with Lian. On one occasion, Liaozhai visited him in Taoyuan County, but the Zhu family went to the villa. He couldn't go anywhere else after dark, so the janitor invited him in, cleaned the bed and cooked for him. Liaozhai asked about his master in detail, and it turned out that rumors had spread that the court would choose a good family of women and send them to reward the soldiers in the frontier. As long as they hear about young people who are not married, they don't hire matchmakers, they don't get engaged. They just send their daughters to their homes, and some even get to daughters-in-law in one night. Zhu Sheng also recently married the daughter of a family surnamed Da. I'm afraid the situation was so noisy that the county order found out about it that he temporarily moved to the countryside. At the end of the first month, the clean-up bed was about to go to bed, and suddenly heard several people pushing open the gate and coming straight in. The doorkeeper, unsure of what to say, heard only one person say, If Mr. Xiang is not at home, who is the lighting in the house? The gatekeeper replied, It's Mr. Lian, a distant guest. A moment later, the interrogator arrives, dressed neatly and gorgeously, offering a salute to Mr. Lian, asking about his family. Liaozhai told him, and he said happily, We're from the same hometown. What's your father-in-law's family name? Lian replied, No wife yet. The more delighted he got, the more he rushed out to greet another teenager, respectfully saluting Mr. Lian, before bursting out, Tell you the truth, our last name is Mu. I came here this evening to marry my sister, but I didn't know this was going to work until I got here. Isn't it heaven's will that you happen to meet your son when you're in a dilemma? Liaozhai, who didn't know the two men, hesitated. Mr. Mu Sheng, who didn't listen to him, rushed to greet his family. Later, two elderly women carry a woman in and sit on a bed of prosthetics. Liaozhai looked at it with her eyes crossed. The girl was about 15 or 16 years old and was extremely beautiful. Lin was so happy that he made his head and thanked Musant, and told the doorman to buy a drink, showing a little hospitality. Our ancestors were also from Jiangdefu, and our mothers, who were also the eunuchs, are now in decline, Musant said. I heard that my grandfather had two grandchildren and I don't know what the situation was like. Liaozhai asked, Who is your grandfather? My grandfather's surname is Liu Zhuiro. I heard he lives 30 miles north of the city. Mr. Mu said, I am from the southeast of Fuchang, far from the north of the city. And I am young and have not traveled widely, said Lian. Liu is the most numerous in the county, only that there is a Liu Jingking in the north of the city. And a reader who doesn't know if he is the descendant of your grandfather, but his family is already poor. My family's graves are still in Zhang province, he said. We often want to send our parents' coffins back to our hometown for burial because the road fees are not enough. Now that she's married to you, we're going to go back. Liaozhai listened and promised to help them do the job well. The Mujia brothers were so happy that after a few rounds of drinking, they left. Lin has sent away his servants, removed the lights, and the newlyweds are loving and unable to express themselves in words. The next day, Mr. Zhu knew about it and rushed to the city to take away another compound and let Mr. Lian live. Liaozhai returned to Lianghua, and after the handover, The remaining Wu lived in the shop, loaded his belongings, and returned to Taoyuan County, where he and his Mujia brothers raised the bones of their parents-in-law and returned to Chang with their wives and children. When we're home, Liaozhai will fill up the silver and go see the owner. The servant who sent him is waiting for him on the way. Liaozhai followed him to Liu's home, and Mrs. Liu came out to meet him, saying with a beaming look, "Mr. Tao is back with Shi. He was a guest and today is my niece and son-in-law. I'll give him a banquet, give him the wind and dust, and I'll love Liaozhai." Liaozhai admired Mrs. Liu's prescience and asked, "Is Mrs. Liu close to my mother-in-law?" Mrs. Liu said, "You don't have to ask this, you'll know it over time." So Mrs. Liu piled up the silver on the case, dividing it into 5, and took 2 of them herself, saying, "I want the silver. It's no use. It's just for my grandson." Liaozhai refused to accept the demurral because of too many demurrals. "Our family is lost. The trees in the yard have been chopped off for firewood, Mrs. Liu said sadly. "My grandson is far from here. The porch is broken, and I'm going to ask the prince to run the operation." Lin agreed, and the silver only halves. Mrs. Liu Qiang let Lin take them all and sent him out, back to tears. When Mr. Lian was confused and bizarre, he looked back at the graveyard to see that Mrs. Liu was his wife's maternal grandmother. On his return, Lin took out silver and bought a hectare of land around his tomb to serve as a graveyard, which he covered with trees and was beautifully decorated. She has 2 grandchildren, Liu Jingqing, the eldest grandson, and Yu Kang, the second grandson, who is an alcoholic gambler and has no serious business. Both men are poor. The brothers went to Liaozhai's home to thank him for renovating their graves, and Liaozhai gave them a large sum of money. From now on, the closest thing to each other. Once, Mr. Lian detailed his business dealings with them. Yu King thought that there must be a lot of silver in the tomb. And one night, he tangled with a few gamblers, dug the tomb and searched for it. The coffin was cut open and the body was revealed, and the silver was not found, so I was disappointed to disband. Liaozhai told Jing King when he knew the grave had been exhumed. Jing King and Liaozhai will go to the cemetery together for examination. When I got into the tomb, I saw the case full of 2 pieces of silver. Jing King and Liaozhai split the money, and Liaozhai said, "Madam left here for you." Jing King shipped the silver home and told the government about the exhumation. The government's investigation is very strict. One man was later caught selling jade hoops from his grave, and the official interrogations pressed his fellow party to find out that Yu King was the leader. When the county ordered Yu King to be executed, Jing pleaded for him to be spared only death. Together, the 2 worked on the restoration, and the interior and exterior of the graves were much more sturdy and beautiful than before. Since then, both Lian and Jing have become rich, only Yu King remains as poor as ever. Lin and Jing King used to work for him, but it wasn't enough for him to gamble and spend. One night, a few robbers broke into Liaozhai's home and grabbed him for silver. The silver collected by Liaozhai was forged into ingots at 1502, and then dug them up and showed them. The robbers took 2 of them, only when the horse that Mrs. Liu gave Liaozhai was in the stable. The robber drove him away with silver and forced Liaozhai to send him to the village field. Did he be released? People in the village saw the bandits fire bars not far away and screamed for chase, and the bandits scared off. Everyone chased down there. Silver was thrown on the side of the road, and the horse was reduced to ashes. Lin Shang knows horses are devils. Only one Koshiro was lost that night. It turned out that the robbers grabbed Lian's wife, loved her beauty and were about to rape her. And a masked robber yelled at them to stop them, sounding like Yu King. The robbers let go of Ms. Lian's wife, only to leave with Mr. Koshiro on her wrist. Liaozhai is suspected of being Yu Cheng, but he is secretly grateful to him. Then a bandit used Koshiro as a wager, pressed his fellow countrymen, and, of course, Yu King. The county order was furious and used all 5 forms of torture. Yu King's brother conferred with Liaozhai to save him from death by bribing the government with a large sum of money. They had not yet done so, and Yu King was dead. Mr. Lian also often cared for Mr. Zhou's wife and children. Liaozhai went on to raise people in his hometown exams, and rich people have lived for generations. The word greedy is very close to the word poor in its plot and image. People like Yu King can serve as a model.
Come to an end. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you.